Hello, my name is Linda Dolke. I'm a demonstrator with Stampin'Up here in Australia. Today we're making an Eclipse card, and this is a fabulous technique that is very simple to achieve, and you'll enjoy making it too. It is a card that I'm doing in conjunction with October and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we've used the Ribbon of Courage stamp set to achieve this lovely look. I hope you enjoy the cards. The set I'm using today is called Ribbon of Courage. Ribbon of Courage is a great set. This one is actually designed in conjunction with our art team and Patty Bennett, who's a demonstrator in the US. And one of the perks of getting to the $1 million sales mark is you get to go into with the art team and design your own stamp set. And this is the one that she designed. So very, very cool. And I've made this card with it. So I've done a couple of different versions. This one's got a bit of glimmer at the bottom. This one's got some sequins. You can do all sorts of things to them, and I will show you all of that. But it's actually a really easy card to do. The only pieces you're going to need to make the card, I've included a bit of glimmer for my card, but you don't have to have that. You're going to need your base. Okay, I've just cut a piece of A4 cardstock in half, and then I've got a mat underneath that a piece of white fits inside. I'm just using Whisper White today, but you could use shimmery white or any color you like really. I'll show you some other Eclipse cards I've done as well, but I'm going to go ahead and fold my base cardstock in half to make my card, my basic card. And just reach over for my bone folder. All right, that's ready. And then this is going to be underneath that. So basically the way the card's going to go together is very, very simple. Just on top, and then another layer that will go on top of that. So each one frames the other. So if you're doing this in centimeters, this is 10 centimeters wide by, ooh, let me grab my trimmer. It's 14 centimeters, but a little bit more, 14.35. So not quite 14 and a half long. And then this one is half a centimeter smaller on each side, so just under 14 and 9.5 wide. So that's the basics. And we're going to start with this piece, and we're going to start stamping straight on it. So I'll show you a couple of other versions of the Eclipse card because I think it helps to see a few different ones. And I'm just pulling a few stamps out of my set that I'm planning on using. And this one here. So this is, I'm not sure, I think this is C block I'm using here, and then A block for the little one, and I'm using E block for the big one. And this, I'm just using the straight ribbon, not the fancy one. So you can see there's also a fancy one here as well that you could colour in and do other things with, which I have, but today I'm just using the straight solid ribbon. All right. Now, one thing I'm not a huge fan of clear stamps. Okay, I'd say probably slightly more of my customers buy clear than wood, but I'm still a fan of the wood. One of the reasons is when I'm using a larger stamp, there's nothing I hate more than the stamp falling off the block. That drives me crazy. And if I'm really wanting to make sure it stays in place, sometimes I put a little bit of snail on the block and make sure it sticks on there with that. So I mean, I know there are other solutions, but I usually just pick wood because I find it easier. And there's nothing worse to me than a stamp that wants to fall off. Okay, so I'm using 3 different pinks, but you know, you could just use 1 or 2. If you've only got 1 pink, you'll still get a great effect. And I'm going to start by stamping. This is the powder pink, which is actually the lightest of the 3. So the 3 I'm using are powder pink, blushing bride, and the dark one is actually sweet sugar plum. So when I bring my card back in, so the dark is the sweet sugar plum, and you can see the others stamped in the background. So there's not a huge amount of difference between the powder pink and the blushing bride, but you can see the blushing bride is a little stronger, a bit darker. I really like blushing bride. To me, it's a slightly, for want of a better word, a slightly dirty pink, and I actually like that because I think it has a bit more character. I don't like a lolly pink, not so much, but blushing bride to me has a lot of character. So I'm going to start with my little fancy heart here, the larger one, and I'm just going to ink it up, and I'm just going to stamp randomly over the background. Now you could do a line of these if you wanted to, or you could do you could do anything really. You don't even have to have them if you don't want to, but I actually quite liked the way they looked. Okay, so I've just sort of left a little bit of room there in the middle because I'm going to be stamping my other stamps there. And then I'm going to come in with my big one and the Sweet Sugar Plum. And I'm going to make sure that's inked up properly. When you're using a solid stamp, a couple of things. Because we have cushioning between, when you're using rubber stamps, we have a cushion in there which is makes it a lot easier. You get a better solid image, especially with a solid stamp like this. You really do. If this was a photopolymer stamp or a clear acrylic stamp, I would want to be using a matte, such as a piercing pad, one of these, underneath, because that would give me the cushioning to make sure my image is good. But when you've got the foam, you don't need it so much. And I'm going to stamp one right in the middle. Sorry if you can see the back of my head, guys. I'm trying to minimize that for you. And to make sure we get a good clear image, we're going to hold it in place for several seconds and then pull it off. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do 3 of these. You don't have to do 3. You could just do 2 or 1. You just have one on the side, and I'll show you another version of that in a bit. Oh, I've got a little mark there. That would be because I have had a little thing just there on my stamp, but it's gone now. All right, so you get the idea anyway. Now I do have, just in case of needing to fix anything, if you have the markers in the same colors, that can be really helpful. So for example, I could just sort of go over that little mark there lightly and fill that in so that it's less noticeable. A little bit there and a couple of dots there. So just kind of tidying it up a little bit. That's what I find one great use for the markers. When you're using a really solid stamp, it can really help you fill in any little blank spots. Now I could just leave it like that, but just because we can, I'm going to go to the Blushing Bride, which is ever so slightly darker than the Powder Pink. And I'm just going to stamp a few more random little. You really can't tell very much that it's darker. I'm just going to do a few extras. That's probably plenty. I think that's plenty. A little bit of white space looks good too. You don't have to completely fill in the whole thing. So I'm going to pop the lids back on these. Okay, so I've got this piece ready to go. Now, unfortunately, when I use my Big Shot on this table, this is just a trestle table that I use for classes, it does wobble the table, wobbles the camera on the table. So my apologies for that, but there's not much we can do to avoid it. I'm going to bring my Big Shot in, and I'm going to put it this way so that you can see what I'm doing as much as I've decided to. It's probably time for new plates. These ones really have seen better days, but at least they're nice and flat. Well, the bottom one is nice and flat. I always use the flattest one on the bottom. This one's got a little bit of a bow to it, and that one goes on the top. That's from just using and using and using. All right, so I'm going to pop this on. Now I am using my magnetic platform. You don't have to. If you don't have a magnetic platform, you can get still get a great result without it. But using the magnetic platform, I find, is easier when it comes to lining up my letters, and they are more likely to stay where I put them. So if you have one, this would be a great time to get it out and use it. All right, so I'm using the large letters for this. Here's something that you'll find kind of interesting. You don't have to have these letters in order to make an Eclipse card. You can do Eclipse cards with other things, like for example, this one might be hard to see, but like there's a little example of one where I've used the cat punch to do a similar effect, okay? However, I think the ones done with letters and also numbers are the best ones. If the letters are a little bit out of your reach when it comes to looking at your budget, because they are an investment, they're not cheap. They're in Australia, 170 something. I'll double check that and make sure I pop that in the comments below for you, or we might even look at it before the end of the video. But I find I use these so often, both in scrapbooking and also in card making, that for me, they're absolutely an investment, and I think they're well worth it. But if you don't want to do the letters, If you wanted to get the numbers, they are a lot cheaper, and you'll still get a great effect with those. So I've got a card already planned with those coming up, and you'll see what I'm going to do with them. They look really cool as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop my letters down any old how. I'm not even going to try and line them up yet. I just want to make sure I've got the word spelt correctly, which might sound silly, but there's nothing worse than misspelling a word on something like this. So I'm deciding where I would like my letters to be, and now I'm going to use my magnetic plate to line them up and keep them as much in place as I can. Now, here's a word about your magnetic plate. A lot of people don't realise that it's not one big magnet. There's actually rows of magnets in here, and that's why, especially when you use some of the smaller dies, sometimes you put them on and they jump. They don't stay where you put them. They jump around, and the reason why is because you've actually put them between the magnets, and you've got the negative and the positive pulling against each other, and that's why they don't sit where you want them to sit. However, if that happens, just move your whole piece to a different part of the platform and keep doing that until they stay put, until you get it in the right spot. It can be frustrating when you're first playing around with them, but I find that it doesn't take too long to work out that if you just move your project to a different position, you will eventually find a spot where they don't jump. Okay, just going to pop that up a little bit. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks pretty good. All right, let's wind it through. So my apologies if this does actually move a little bit. It will wobble a bit. Oh, sorry, and it also makes noises. Here they go. Those noises are normal. That's what it's meant to do, and you know it's cutting properly when it's making those noises. All right, without removing them, I'm just going to look over and make sure that it has cut all the way through, and it has. That's all we need our big shot for, so we can get rid of that now. Okay, let's have a little look here. All right, so I'm going to pull all my pieces out. You want to pull them out gently and sort of just push each piece through, and especially for the H, and some of the letters have got like little bits that you need to dislodge carefully, because, for example, all right, so you've got these little bits that can easily get broken off, so you want to make sure they don't. And you need to keep all the pieces, okay? So, for example, I've got this piece with the O. You need to keep both the outside and the inside of the O, all right? So I'm just going to pop each one up there. Same with the P. I want to put that middle piece of the P. I've got to keep that as well. And I'm going to pop that middle piece just up above my letter. I just find if you keep them organised like this, it's just a little easier when you come back later, because we're going to need all those bits. So just carefully prise them out. You can use a pokey tool if you want to, and what I mean a pokey tool, like a little paper piercing tool, which I usually have one lying around, but there isn't right now, but that's okay. All right, so there's my letters I've used. I don't need those again, but I do need all these pieces. And what I've done is I've taken them out and laid them out exactly as they came out, same way. If you, like for example, it's with a symmetrical shape like the H or like the O, it's really easy to accidentally turn it up the wrong way, and then your picture is not going to be complete, because we're going to be putting these back in and completing the picture, a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, I guess. All right, so now that I've finished with this, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to grab my snail, and I'm going to go all the way around my piece. So I've got all the outside done, but I also need to go in between the letters, and any flappy bits, like the little bits in the middle of the E and these little bits in the middle of the H, any of those little flappy bits, I want those to also get a bit of glue on them, because I want to make sure that nothing can flap around once I put it down. I'm going to bring in my piece of silver, and I'm going to line that up so it has that silver piece as a mat behind. Try not to put it down crooked, but you know. All right, okay, so now I've got my pieces, but it doesn't yet look like an Eclipse card because we need to put these pieces back in. So that's where these wonderful things, mini dimensionals, come in. They are perfect for putting behind these letters. If it was a larger shape, something like, you know, if you had done hearts or something like that, you'd want to use larger dimensionals, but the little ones are great. And I just check each time that if we are putting the picture together. So I'm going to put a couple of these mini dimensionals here and here. And then take the backs off. It does help if you have nails when it comes to taking the backs off the dimensionals. If you don't, you might want to use like one of those chislet tools or a paper piercing tool, or even the end of your scissors to get the backs off. Now, a couple of things about putting these letters back in. You can put them exactly back in and that will work just fine. But if you want to, and I do like to do this, you can offset it ever so slightly so it creates just that tiny little bit of shadow. And I think that looks great and highlights the letters just a little bit more. The other thing you can do, I'm not doing it today with these ones, but you can get a sponge or a dauber and very, very gently, softly go around the outside of your letters with your lightest colour. So in this case it would be the powder pink, because that will also help accentuate the letters just a little bit more. Okay, so I need to make sure that this is going in the right place, and it is. So I'm going to turn it up and I'm going to put these behind here as well. So it's actually a really easy technique, this, but it looks so effective. And I have to say, some of the things that I've put up online have got so much engagement, so many likes and comments, because people just seem to love it. So I've done a few different ones and I will show a few of them to you. And some of them have been on my blog for those of you who have looked at that. All right, so now we've got the O in. We've got the P. So I'm not putting them everywhere. I'm just putting sort of in the largest places. And if you've got a bit where it's just too skinny, I wouldn't bother about cutting down your dimensionals. I would only be bothering to put them in the places where they're big enough for these little mini dimensionals to fit. Okay. That one, oh, it's already off. That's why I can't get it off. There we go. All right, that one's going to go in as well. And the E, last one. So you can see how easy this is. It's such a nice, simple but effective card to do, card style. This was actually my technique class this month. I did these with my groups and they loved it. Thought they were fantastic. Here we go. All right, so I'm just about done with this one. Have to be a bit gentle with the ones that have got skinny bits like the E, because it's really easy to rip them, so just be very careful with that. All right, so the letters are in. Now I need to also put in these bits. However, these bits don't go up on dimensionals, they go on flat. So you want to add them in at the end and you'll get the position exactly right if you put it straight in through the hole and then make sure you push it down like that. And the same with the P. Put that one in. Okay, and that's the basis of the card. That's how it works. And I thought this was really nice. In Australia, we have some wonderful breast cancer organisations. We have Jane McGrath, the McGrath Foundation, that was set up by Jane McGrath. And when she lost her battle, very sadly, some years ago. And there's also, of course, the Cancer Foundation here in Australia that do an amazing work. My own mum was so grateful to the Cancer Council. They worked with the Leukemia Foundation and the Cancer Council to do some great fundraising and helping them with that before my mum passed away from the disease earlier. Hers was lymphoma though, not breast cancer. cancer, but all cancers are yuck. Not very nice. So this time I'm just adding a little row of glimmer down the bottom there. So you can see this one has a bit of bling, this one has the glimmer, and so does that. Okay, so I've done a few of those now. They'd be nice to send out to people at this time of the year, especially when October is a month that we do look at breast cancer particularly, but all kinds of cancers. Alright, so just a couple of other ones that I've done before I say goodbye. I did this one as a baby card. Now this one, I should know the name of the person, but I saw this one online and I'm so sorry. I do not know the name of the person who came up with this idea originally that I copied from. This would be a great baby boy card, and thank you to whoever it was that did that one. And then this one, Randy Collins in the US. I saw her lovely card done with the Night in Bethlehem stamp set, and you can see I've stamped the little village there in the background, Bethlehem Village, and we've got a star, and I've done a few of these. Some of them had stars all the way across. This one had the words, but because you have Noel across here, you probably don't really need the words, so it's up to you whether you would want to have those or not. And then this was one I did in class as well. We used the Birthday Blooms stamp set, which I embossed the large rose in the background in silver on Sahara sand, and I did actually go around these letters just ever so slightly with Sahara sand ink to accentuate them a little more, to have the word love, and I thought this would make a nice wedding card. So so that's what that would be used for, and I'll pop it away in my stash for when I have such a wedding. I have a friend I've promised one to. I have a couple, so I have one for myself and one for her. Alright, so I hope you like those. I will quickly show you front catalogue, this one, and this stamp set I believe is page 96. I hope I'm right from memory. Yes, so there's the Ribbon of Courage stamp set. It comes in Claremont and Woodmount, and it's in Australia $47 in the wood and $33 in the clear. And then these are the letter stamps that match the alphabet framelits that I was just using. These are not a bundle, but they do coordinate. So they were a bundle in a previous catalogue, but not in this one. But you can get those as well. However, the actual framelit dies are here on page 215, and we've got the large letters. They're $172 here in Australia. If you're wondering, thinking, gee, that's a lot. There are actually 37 framelits in this set, and to me they are an investment. I use them in scrapbooking, I use them on cards, I use them in all kinds of things, and they are lovely for monograms, all sorts of things. So they don't just include the alphabet, there's also, as you can see down here, punctuation like question marks and equals and all sorts of exclamation marks, brackets, all that sort of stuff. And these are the large number framelits that I was talking about. Those are a set of 11 and they're $54. So that's much, much cheaper if you wanted to make a New Year's card, which I'll be doing in just a little while with 2018 on it. So those ones I think are really nice as well. So lots and lots of options. I hope you've enjoyed that today, and I will be back again with more. I'm still having trouble uploading videos from my phone to my computer for whatever reason. I don't know why, but once we sort that out, I'll be back to normal programming. In the meantime, Facebook Live is allowing me to still chat to you guys and show you a few things here and there. So I hope that you'll stick around. If you haven't liked my Facebook page, please do hit the like button, because then you'll be notified when I've got things like this coming up. You'll be able to see when I go live, and any other bits and pieces that I'm popping up on the page as well. Have a great day, guys, and enjoy your day, whatever you're doing. Bye.